Peace to the planet Earth. And as always, man, we grateful to each and every one of you joining us on the live. I see already some people commenting a few minutes late, but we are live. And despite technical difficulties, we're definitely here today to speak on the topic. I've got my friend, cohort, constituent, uh, Emily up here, advocate, organizer, and more, to tap in on the conversation when it comes to Georgia Parole this evening. And we also have an individual calling in, was called in from behind the wall in Georgia to speak specifically and directly because he's being impacted, has been impacted by the parole situation. Emily, what's going on?
Not much, nothing much really. I'm ready to get into this about Georgia Parole because they just not releasing people.
Yeah, I was gonna say what before we get into it. Obviously, we know parole is an issue all over the country, where there's parole. What are some just real quick, 30-second blurb or need to know about what's going on with Georgia parole, and why we're here tonight, real quick.
For one, we need to start with the members who was on the panel. I mean, we got one that's was a victim advocate.
Yeah,
Yeah, like how you got a victim advocate, somebody who defends, the victim, supposedly going to release people. Ain't happening.
yeah, it seems kind of like a conflict of interest there, but
It
hey,
is. It is to me.
right, and that's why
You
we're
know,
here. Ironically enough, there's a big case down here in Georgia right now, gang RICO, the YSL case, and the DA. He just got kind of caught up or being exposed because there's a lot of conflicts in the case. Right,
hmm
it's kind of hard for her to serve in that position because of her ties and her, But we're here to discuss things like that. I think what's unique about today is we have a voice, from the inside that called in, that's able to, speak to certain points, that's actually living through the situation, etc. So I definitely, he's already online. Dion, can you hear us? All right. Can't hear. Emily, you can't hear?
now come closer to the phone. S- Okay. Okay.
Uh,
We're good. Hold the phone up.
hey, Dion, are you on speakerphone or you got the phone just to your ear? Yeah, go ahead, take it off speakerphone, and I want to make sure we can't hear you that way. I want to make sure everybody hears this
Okay, is it better?
There we
way
go.
million times better,
Yes.
sir.
Okay. Well, there's a major issue with the parole board here in Georgia. And the parole board continues to deny people, um, I guess because of the system that they operate by. I'll give you an example. You have some guys in here that sentenced up under the 7-year life sentence. Some guys are sentenced up under the 14-year life sentence, and some guys are sentenced up under the 30-year life sentence. Now, the 30-year life sentence came into play after 2006. Before 2006, you had the 14-year life sentence and go on back and so forth. But the problem is those that sentenced up under the life sentence, up under the 7-year life sentence, are still here.
How long
And
have you been in?
I've been in over a couple of decades. I've been in over 20 years. So the system in which the parole board is using to grant or deny parole is kind of chaotic from my view, because the parole board will send you a letter and they'll give you these mandates, these requirements that they want you to do. And when you fulfill those mandates or requirements given by the parole board, they'll deny you. Versus another individual who don't complete the requirements or do anything that's mandated by the parole board would be granted parole. So the system that they're using is confusing, really.
What?
And then go ahead, bro.
I gotta ask you, because I mean I get it. So you're saying there's a criteria, and some of the brothers are meeting the criteria, they're still getting denied. You've got some individuals that are not meeting the criteria, they're still getting granted. Is there any commonality that you're seeing for the individuals that are getting granted besides they haven't met the criteria? Or is it really just seem random at this point?
It's all random. And I think the problem is coming from that the parole board answers to no one. The parole board has no checks and balances. There's no one to go behind the parole board member to make sure to ensure that the job is being done correctly. So, for instance, I'm a parole board member. I wake up feeling bad. A bad night at home with my wife. I go to work the next morning. This person here may have met all the criteria, all the mandates given by the parole board, but just because of how I feel, I can deny this person.
Yeah.
They answer to no one. They answer to no one. So they can just wake up and have a bad day. And then they can run across a child that's worthy of being granted parole, but based on how they feel from a bad day at home, they can deny their parole and no one even question anything, and there's no checks and balances.
Let me ask you this, because individuals may not be familiar with the parole process. Sometimes you see it in a movie, a guy walks into an office in front of a panel. I know when I was in Commonwealth of Virginia, nobody got an opportunity to meet the parole board. It was literally, they just seen a file, a name,
And
and a
that
number.
and that's an issue because like here in Oklahoma, you
Mhm.
do get to talk to the parole board if you
How,
make it to stage 2.
so
See,
they do get a visual. How is it in Georgia?
Okay, Georgia, very few get an interview with parole board representatives. Very few. Like I say, I've been in a little over 2 decades. I've never been interviewed by a parole board member. Very few receive an interview from a parole board member, and the only way that you know that you have been set off or granted parole is through a letter in the mail. And a lot of times you will receive that letter in the mail before you actually is spoken to by a counselor, letting you know the outcome of your parole review.
Hey,
here's
Emily,
another
oh,
here
my fault.
here's another issue. Read to him what that letter says. How it's worded. Listen how this is worded.
And then I got a question about Alabama process, because you was about to touch on something.
Okay. Do you have the topic?
I figured that was coming.
And Dion, I'm keeping a track on the clock. So as we get near to the call, and then I'll go ahead and I'll go ahead and click off, and you can call me back so we can continue the conversation too.
Okay, sounds good.
Did you text that to me or messenger? Do you remember?
It was on your messenger.
Somebody
Well,
just
ask your question why I find this.
somebody just asked, if they are not being interviewed by a representative of the parole board, Dion, then who is doing the interview? Or if there's not an interview, because you said it's hit or miss, is there anything in place of?
No, it's not an interview.
It's nothing.
I mean, the both denials that I received them through the mail. I knew I was denied parole by mail before I actually found out by a counselor. Counselor may have came a week or two later to let me know, hey, they denied your parole. But to actually sit down or to go and stand in front of parole board members, very few here in Georgia receive that opportunity.
What are some of the reasons? I mean, obviously you just explained as far as the process criteria is being met, but is there, I know one of the things in the Commonwealth where I was at, when it came to denial, they give you a reason. There wasn't necessarily criteria at the time, but a lot of times it would be nature of the crime, something that couldn't be changed. Do they give reasons for denial, or is it just based on criteria, or
I'm about to read it to you. It says the board. I'm just going to read the whole thing.
hold
It's
on,
small.
Emily. Hold on 1 second, Emily. What were you saying, Deion?
Okay, here in Georgia, they like to use the term insufficient amount of time served. They love that term. They will tell you that you have served an insufficient amount of time, even after you've done 25 years for the charge or crime that you may be in prison for. Okay, so what is a sufficient amount of time? Okay, they'll give you a number after they tell you that you served an insufficient amount of time. They might set you off 5 years. So based on how the letter is worded, if you serve those 5 years, then that should be a sufficient amount of time. But Miss Shelton has
yeah, she about to read it now. I got to hear this.
Further break it down.
I got to hear this.
It says the board has considered your case in accordance with board policy and denied parole. The main reason cited by the board after a review of the totality of your case is insufficient amount of time served to date given the nature and circumstances of your offenses. You are encouraged to continue your rehabilitation efforts so you will be properly prepared to be successful in the future considering results in your transition back into society.
That's a generic response. That's so. So length of time, which just is, you just said you over 2 decades.
Correct.
Is there criteria in sentencing for anybody who doesn't understand what Georgia sentencing? Does it say, like back in Chicago, or certain places might say 2 to 5, or you have to serve a certain amount of time before you're parole eligible? Is it written like that in the sentencing?
Okay, in my case, I served 14 years before I became eligible for parole because I'm up under the life sentence that carries 14 years before I'm eligible. So I've done that 14 plus several more years after that. You know, so once they deny you parole up under insufficient amount of time served, it was a law that was passed that they cannot deny you for the same thing again. And they are continuing to do that. They may use nature of the crime. If they use nature of the crime for this first denial, when you come back up again, based on that law, they shouldn't say nature of the crime. But they are continuing to go against the same law that they make.
Yeah.
The second time I've been set off for insufficient amount of time. Now, they would have set me off and said for the nature of the crime, that would have been different. But you can't continue to set a person off saying the same for the same reason. You have to change that reason. And they're not even abiding by that.
What's the average wait time if somebody gets turned down for parole before they get seen again?
It depends on each individual case. The first time I was denied parole and I was set off 4 years. This time when I was denied parole, they set me off 3. Now, some people are set off 8, some people are set off 7, some people are set off 6. The number range anywhere in a set off from 1 to 8 years. So
it's like,
yeah, it can range from 1 year to 8 year in a set off.
and it can. There's no definitive, like, that's what it is. Outside of checks and balances, there's nothing in place that says, all right, at the 6 month mark or at the 2 year mark, or this individual, or the criteria as far as length of time that needs to be served. Because from what I'm getting here in this case, 14 years to be parole eligible. If you're saying 14 years allows me to be parole eligible, that allows me the opportunity to get out the door. If the reason for denial is length of sentence or length of time served, it doesn't make sense.
And you know what else I found when I was, when they look at somebody's parole case, they actually look at their arrest records and court records too. So they're using previous records against them.
Even if they're not included in the trial, like for the
Clearly, yeah, it says they study the arrest records and court records previous, interviewing arrest officers, court officials, victim witnesses to create a legal investigation report, the inmate's current offense and prior offenses that occurred in the same county. Yeah, and they look at their personal history.
do you if you're on trial in Georgia, do you have the ability to request, or does your attorney have the ability to request to have like juvenile records sealed or anything like that prior to trial?
They do.
So I wonder if those are still accessed.
More like in Alabama responding back to us.
No, AI.
Oh, okay. I'm like Alabama.
One of the comment. We're reading a couple of the comments up here, and Dion, I'm gonna go ahead. It's good. I know you. I'm gonna click off so you can call back. And I'm gonna have Emily read some of these comments while I mute my mic so you can call back really quick.
Okay.
All right, Emily, you got the comments?
Yeah, the one is saying paroles pretty much do what they want. That is true. They use records against them and consider them as habitual offenders. That is true. Hold on, I gotta scroll. According to the OCGA 42945A, it states they shall have a eligibility requirement. Shall is the vague language, which means it is a must and mandatory. I have to look into that. They need to set a criteria of what these individuals need to do to be granted, but let them tell it parole is discreditory. But my thing is this. Dion has taken many classes. Many classes. I have all his certificates. And they don't even look at that. I literally had a parole board member here in Oklahoma. He's an ex-parole member. Tell me that they don't even look at that stuff.
As far as anything on the positive side or anything that.
Yeah, they just look at what the charge is and go off of that. That's what the parole board member told me.
Let me ask you this, Deanna, that's your back. Give me some examples of the criteria, even though it seems the criteria is a non-factor, but what are some of the things that it says has to be completed outside of length of time served, etc.? Is it programs? Is it schooling? What?
Correct. They may give you a mandation for a class, thank you for a change, or re-entry skill, or they may mandate you to get your GED. They give you all of these requirements and mandates, and then they'll tell you, okay, well, you got a year to get this done, and then within that year period, we'll be back to review you. And just say, for instance, if you meet all of those requirements within that year period, and the counselor submitted all the information, they forwarded all the information to the parole board, you got your GED, you completed reentry, and you completed thanking for a change. That's what they wanted you to do. That was the mandate. Now, upon receiving that information, they'll send back a denial. They'll send back a letter sending the person off or denying parole. It's like they get your hopes up to slam you back down.
Right.
You know.
I like this. I want to Yeah, I want to read this comments real quick. You know, you need to. It said so somebody suggested what people need to do is start doing a profile on these individuals. So when you, or shall I say, get a meeting with somebody from parole, you have something to work off of when you sit in front of these people. I think I said something along the line. Excuse me, on one of the podcasts, individuals said we need to start basically keeping our own files on parole members when to meet family members, etc. Because we can have our own audit or do our own audits or whatever it is, or have our own timelines of communication. But I agree with that
I
because
do
it
too.
has. I think with the power of social media and communication and something like this, there is a way to kind of do checks and balances. But it's sad that there's no within DOC, within the justice system here in Georgia, they're just running wild. It almost seems there's no.
You know, one of the problems is for one, we should not have ex-DAs on board. We should not have ex-judges on the parole board.
Yeah, talk a little bit more
You
about
know,
that.
I mean, how we can't have people who sentence people to prison and expect them to release people. I mean, it just don't work that way. So that's one thing that we need to change. That's something that has to change, and that's something in every state, not just Georgia.
Right.
I mean, we have two ex-DAs on our board in Oklahoma right now. So,
Somebody,
yeah, I mean, it's just that's a major issue, and it needs to change.
I'm reading these comments at the same time. Somebody said I had a meeting with Miss Moon, and from out the meeting, she missed totally doing the complete opposite. Hopefully, I should have a meeting with her again soon. Emails, y'all. Email for us that have the ability to electronic or what they call digital fingerprint. If we can get it in writing, something's just like it says. Somebody just like Kemp have an oversight committee over DAs. They need one for yes, they definitely need an oversight committee for the parole board. They need an oversight committee for all the parole boards.
Correct. Because at this point, the parole board is they're their own entity. You know, they answer to no one. They don't even have to justify why parole is denied.
I wonder if anybody's introduced.
Go ahead.
I was just saying, I wonder if anybody's introduced or tried to introduce any policy like that on the floor.
Sad thing is right now there's nothing even on the floor. There is nothing in Georgia for criminal justice right now. That's
It's
an
not.
issue.
Georgia is different. Georgia's different. What were you saying, though, Dion?
What I was saying is that, if they can be held responsible for someone to oversee them, then I think that, it will begin some type of change. But right now, they have too much power. And they don't have to answer to no one. So they can do exactly what they want to do, how, when, and where they want to do it, and don't have to give an explanation for the wrong that they're doing. Because why would you send a person a letter mandating them to take this class, that class, and this other class, and then telling them you'll be back to talk to them within a year or maybe 2 years?
Never show.
Upon the completion of those classes. And once they completed those classes and done what you have asked them to do, you deny.
Right. Yeah.
Versus another person that may have caught multiple DRs that haven't completed now class or done nothing that was mandated by the parole board, you grant that person parole.
Yeah.
So what kind of system are y'all basing your judgment off of when it comes to granting and denying parole?
I'm going to say this, and I say this all the time. They let the ones out that they know are going to reoffend.
A lot of times.
It has gotten so bad with a few people till they decided, well, look, man, I need to catch me a couple DR. Maybe I can go and make parole.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I was thinking about the environment because parole is supposed to be, a tool to motivate, the brothers and sisters, to go to programs and complete certain things, get vocations, stay on the right track. But if there's no guarantee that doing these things will grant you parole, or that the system that's in place even works, there's no motivation to necessarily move a specific way. I'm not going to be motivated necessarily, unless
Right.
I don't know.
Parole is like riding a donkey with a carrot in front of it.
Yeah.
That donkey wants that carrot, and as long as you hanging that carrot over in front of him, he's gonna walk. And that's how parole is in Georgia. They just lead the carrot wherever they want it to go. They lead the carrot so long till the carrot are riding the person that died.
That's sad.
Do they? I want to ask you this really quick because I know individuals may have this question. Do they have juvenile parole outside of regular parole? Do they have geriatric parole? Are there any exceptions, anything like that?
I don't believe that there is. There's a few individuals that I know that's been in since they was 15 to 16. They're well in their 30s now. A lot of these guys was just in the wrong place at the wrong time and didn't even commit the crime.
Telling you, man, Georgia's scary.
A lot of them were just in the wrong place at the wrong time and didn't commit the crime, but by them being in the midst of the crime, they got the sentence of the person that actually committed the crime.
Yeah.
And they've been in, like I say, since they were 15 and 16, and a lot of them now well in their 30s. So that tells me that you're not reviewing cases. You're not looking into the details of cases. You're not looking at the circumstances of cases. You're not.
Nope, they're just looking at the crime.
Yeah, because if you was looking at the circumstances of the case, if you was looking at the evidence of a case, then you would realize that this guy, he was just standing at the party. And it was the other person that actually, had an altercation with this individual.
Right.
And this person here may have gotten shot or may have gotten stabbed or whatever the case may have been. And you realize that this person over here didn't do it. This person here actually did it. Okay, this person here served 20 years and he didn't actually do it. Let me go on and let this man go home. But instead of doing that, you send a denial letter.
And I wonder how many times co-defendants in a situation like that, the shooter's gone home and made parole before the guy that was just gave him the ride or whatever. Not saying, with all due respect, any victim may be impacted by a crime like that, but I'm sure that happens.
Several.
That's got to be twisted. Respectfully, that's got to be crazy.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I'm just mind-boggling about what system or what are they looking at? What are they looking at? What system are they using? Because it's like chaos. You don't know what to expect.
They're using that money system.
Better. That's one thing Georgia's about is money. So let me ask you this, just because somebody, and I want to give somebody a living, breathing example, because somebody said they know that you've accomplished a lot. They said, I do have Deion's paperwork too, and he has accomplished a whole lot. Again, for anybody that's listening, you've been down for over 2 decades, parole eligible after 14. What are some things that you've accomplished clearly that would say to the public, hey, I'm deserving of a shot at parole? Just so people can understand, effort doesn't always necessarily equal, the desired outcome.
Well, the parole board will give you a case plan. In this case plan, you would have to complete several classes. Okay, and once you completed those classes from the parole board case plan, this is all that's mandated or required from the parole board. I've not only done that, but I went beyond and above by taking courses on the outside and college courses on the outside and continued my education beyond being on the inside of the wall. the inside of the wall, nothing else can be offered to me on the inside. So therefore, I went on the outside and continuing my studies now, even to this day. So my progress and my education and betting myself hasn't stopped. I have things that I've accomplished on the outside, on the inside of my file, as well as everything on the inside of my file. So I have gone beyond reaching out to continue my studies, as well as completing everything that was required of them. I just didn't sit around and wait for them to give me, certain classes to take. I went searching for classes for myself.
I feel like I already know the answer to this question, but if you don't mind me asking, when's the last time you caught an infraction or a charge?
About 4 years ago.
Yeah. So, so 5 years ago, 2018, 2019, 2017, whatever the time frame, and probably before that, I can only imagine it was probably years before that if you caught another charge before that. But you've
it was 2013.
Yeah.
From 2013 up to 2000, from 2013 to 2018, I was DR free and caught a DR in 2018. Up to this point, I've been DR free.
Yeah. So over 5 years, and then before that, years before, all programs completed, reached outside the wall, continue education. They saying the only reason he's denied again, think about this, or the reason the individual's turned around right now is length of sentence. But there's no more program to be offered, and he's already paroled. That's the thing. That's the part I've got out this whole conversation is the fact that in law, which law is supposed to override, I'm parole eligible at 14 years, but you turn me down because I haven't served enough time. That's the main piece that's just gonna be stuck in my head now, because that sounds like a bad riddle. It does not. It's it.
And almost 10 years, 2 DRs.
Yeah, and if anybody doesn't know it, that's
a whole decade. That's a long time to go. Taking things that you normally wouldn't take from individuals and sidestepping a lot of things you normally wouldn't sidestep because you're growing and developing and you're changing and you're becoming a better person. And that's not acknowledged. It's hard going a decade in here without catching that infraction. When you have to deal with this environment, dealing with the officers, with administrative staff, dealing with the other inmates that you are surrounded around,
no
and
question.
trying to protect yourself. That's a long time. That's not even acknowledged, it's not even respected. They don't even care nothing about it.
Especially in Georgia, man. Georgia's system, it's if anybody doesn't know, it's hard, man. The system's out of control. They lost control. They don't talk about it enough. Violence is up. You got brothers trying to stay, out the way, charge free, DR free, get home, and they've got to navigate. I call it a minefield because you don't know what the day is going to bring about, what you might have to navigate. In 10 years, 2 charges, it's impossible. Most guys in a 2-year time frame catch 3-4 charges.
What's upsetting to me is nobody even died in his crime for him to get a life sentence.
Right. And that's the other thing. Nobody
was hurt.
Right. And we understand victim impact. We understand mental and emotional trauma, and we respect that. We respect the victims. But again, this is an individual for over 2 decades. And now you're saying nobody died, nobody got hurt. Nobody was physically harmed.
No one was physically harmed. No blood was drawn. No one was pistol whipped. No one was kidnapped. No one was rolled in a trunk. No one was drugged by a car. No physical harm was caused to an individual in my particular case, period.
Yeah. And these are the issues. And what you just said, that makes sense. Because I was wondering, Commonwealth right now, salute to the brothers and sisters out there. They're making a lot of noise. And then when I just asked you about what's on the floor, you said nothing. And I just think about the state of Georgia as a whole, my experience in different states, and what we're facing down here. Dion, we're approaching the end of the second call. Definitely, I wouldn't mind having you up here in the future, maybe to touch on some more things. What are some things? What's like the last takeaway for now? Matter of fact, I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna save you for last, Dion. Emily, what's the takeaway, really quick, on parole or need to know before we hop off here?
Man, people need to get involved. I mean, nothing's going to change if people sit back and not step up and fight for their loved ones. I mean, people need to start calling this parole board and voicing your opinions to them. I mean, people need to start showing up. That's
Right.
really all I got for it.
Somebody said, Derek said, we need more people to be on here. That's the problem. No one is listening to what we have to say. I agree. More people have to get involved in the process, come together. I think a lot of times people feel like they're on an island, but you get a room full of people, the voices become louder, even if we're all whispering. It'll get louder. Trust me. Somebody said people need to start filing complaints against the parole board. I agree.
Mm.
At least start a paper trail. At least file complaints on your local level, your politicians. Start with your delegate, whatever it is, emails, etc. Start the process. If there's a complaint, if there's an issue, you have the right to voice that. But like I always tell people, don't do it via the phone. You can do it on the phone, but make sure you got a paper trail. Start
Always
building.
send an email. I always call and send an email.
Yeah. Somebody said yes. That's what we need to do. I'm gonna spread the word. And people just have their own agendas instead of working together. Everyone want to be a leader. Sometimes there's a lot of people coming together, though. Shout out to everybody that is. But yeah, sometimes too many Indians, not enough Chiefs. We just got to come together and sit at the table, man, and get it done. Somebody just asked you when's the next meet. I'll post it up here on the page. Our guests are kind of scattered throughout the week. Shout out to everybody that's been up here already and getting up here. But we tend to be up here at least once or twice every week. And then there's a Discord now, which is a different server where you can kind of communicate with the life unit live
Oh,
and action.
nice.
Yeah, yeah. Shout out to Brian. That set that up. He's life unit. He's the guy that helps do all the technical stuff. And then you can follow us not just on Facebook but IG and then YouTube as well if you want to see some of the older conversations, live streams, etc. And then you can email to get in contact, the lifeunitinc at gmail.com. Try to respond as much as possible, but as Emily's probably a million times worse than my box, but it gets overwhelming sometimes. But I know just like her, we try to answer everybody's emails, but it's just not enough of us. We're
Man, I'm
slow.
planning 2 events right now, so I got it back to back right now. So I'm just like, ugh.
Right. I think that was all the comments right there. Dion, now because I wanted to save you for last. What are your final takeaway for today, in regards to parole or thing, you just want people to hear as we're closing this conversation out to the next?
I'm just encouraging everybody that's listening. Let's try to get a deal written. Let's try to get a deal voted on. Let's try to get a deal passed. I know up in Oklahoma, the life sentence has a number, and it's 34 years. If we can get a bill passed, a bill voted on, where a life sentence will have a number, well, some changes should be made in the parole board, that whole system. That's the aim. But it got to be something that's written and put on the floor, voted on and passed.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I agree. I agree 100%. Again, I got to shout out Commonwealth of Virginia where I did my time. They are getting policies and
I've
um,
been watching.
yeah, I just did a couple videos for different organizations that they're, just different paragraphs and blurs. We got delegates. Guys, make sure you check out the Humanization Project. tonight. Matter of fact, in a few minutes, actually in 3 minutes, where they got the delegate up there. She'll be speaking about second chances. She's kind of leading the campaign on that side too. And shout out to everybody that joined up here, man. I want to make sure at least everybody's comments get seen. My husband just made 31 years, life sentence since 16. That's crazy. Denied parole each time despite completing all reentry classes. No DR for at least 4 years. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. Hey guys, if you want to network, communicate further on Georgia Parole, and maybe start, connecting in regards to a bill and just starting that process, you can email myself, Emily. I'm sure you don't mind. You guys
Hmm.
can reach out to Hooked on Justice.
Man,
And-
to cut you off for a second, man,
Go.
join our Hooked on Justice Georgia group. We got a chat group, and we be in there discussing stuff. So come be a part of it.
Yeah, and I would say the Hooked on Justice, Emily's Hooked on Justice Georgia group is Georgia specific. Life Unit, you're gonna see a lot of VA, Georgia, Illinois. You're gonna see a little bit of everything, but definitely make sure you check out her group, support that. And for anybody that doesn't know what to do, just message us, get into conversations with us, and we can at least help you start that process. But as Dion said, we need bills. We need a bill on the floor. We need
Hmm.
policy changes. We need to start having conversations with these politics, or with these politicians. I said politics, but that's it, man. Dion, thank you for joining. Emily, as always, I'm sure you'll be up here 500 more times.
Of
Um,
course.
yeah. And Dion, again, you're more than welcome to come up here. Even if you want to continue the conversation on parole or any other topic, we definitely appreciate voices coming from the outside as well as the inside. Um,
Thank you.
yeah, most
Who
definitely, man.
better to tell it?
Yeah, for sure. Keep fighting forward. Anybody, man, anybody that's impacted by the justice system, nothing is impossible, only improbable. I'm telling you. Brothers and sisters are coming home in the craziest situations when you didn't think they were. We just got to stay in the fight. It's the only way you win it. Till next time. And one last thing. I definitely got to shout this out. Down here, if you're in the Georgia area, Lasting Layers of Beauty Institute, my school, we're still doing a scholarship giveaway. We're giving away a scholarship to a justice impacted individual. It is a cosmetology school, so we haven't had any males apply, but hey, you can apply for cosmetology, nails, esthetician, just like anybody else. If you're justice impacted, you're somebody that's trying to do something positive or are doing something positive in the community, you can email me here as well. And you don't have to
Awesome.
be a returning citizen. You can be, if you're the child of a parent that's incarcerated or your spouse is incarcerated and you're trying to get into the industry, get a vocation, email me here. And let's see if we can get you in there. There's an essay and it's a contest because there's more than one person that's, applied, but let's see if we can get somebody in here. And
That's
that's it.
awesome.
Yeah, I think those are all my announcements. Till next time, guys, we're live and we'll be back. Peace.